And welcome, folks, to the talk show, Let the Truth Be Told. I'm your host, Pastor David. And, folks, we got a great conversation we're going to have today, and I want the American people and patriots across this country. And I want you to listen to this show. I want you to think back on what went on back in the day when Joe Biden created the crime bill, the crack bill, and all the other things that he created to help destroy the Black community. So if you ain't got nothing to do, call your friends and let them know. You're listening to Let the Truth Be Told Radio. I'm your host, Pastor David. Y'all come on in. Wednesday Night Live. Ain't no jive right here. TECNTV.com. And I'm your host, Pastor David. Y'all come on in. We got a great conversation right here.
Little child running wild, watch a while. You see he never smiled.
It's a Wednesday Night Live, ain't no jive right here, TECNTV.com. I'm your host, Pastor David. Taking a blast in the past.
Mama time.
Sounds like Curtis Mayfield off the Superfly album.
Always all alone. Kinda sad, kinda mad. Ghetto child, thinking he's been had. In the back of his mind he said, didn't have to be here.
Wednesday Night Live.
You didn't have to love for me.
Ain't no jive right here at TECNTV.com. I'm your host, Pastor David.
Why couldn't they just let me be, let me be, let me be, let me be?
And we got a great conversation today. You don't want to miss it.
One room shack on the alley back. Control, I'm told, from across the track.
And it's a Wednesday night, y'all come on in.
Where is the mayor?
And still a spell.
Who make all things fair? He lives outside
TECNTV.com. And I'm your host, Pastor David. And if you ain't got nothing to do, get you a brew or two. Or whatever that you do.
You didn't have to love for me.
A glass of wine, it is prime time. And let me put something on your mind.
Why couldn't they just let me be, let me be, let me be, let me be?
Sounds of Curtis Mayfield. Taking a blast in the past.
I got a Jones running through my bones. I'm sorry, son, but all your mind is gone.
Wednesday night, y'all come on.
Painful rip in my upper hip. I guess it's time to take another trip. Don't care now what nobody say. I gotta take the pain away.
Wednesday night.
It's getting worse a day by day.
TECNTV.com.
And all my life has been this way. Can't reason with the pressure man.
Taking a blast in the past.
All that he understands. You junkin' mama cries, you know. Would rip her, but I love her so. Love her so.
Wednesday Night Live, ain't no jive. I'm your host, Pastor David. And if you ain't got nothing to do, y'all come on in. The pastor can open up the school for you. Right here, TECNTV.com. And I'm your host, Pastor David. And I'm telling you, folks, we got a great conversation, so don't go nowhere. Let us get ready to enter the truth zone so we can get this conversation started.
Somewhere I read that the greatness of America is the right to protest far right.
On the bridge.
No justice, no justice, no peace. No justice, no peace.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Muhammad Ali has just refused to be inducted into the United States Armed Forces.
The Biden administration is opening new ways for thousands of people from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela to legally enter the country.
Is necessary by any means necessary.
Malcolm had it right.
To protect his life and
Black
property,
people, we're political football.
In a country where
let's
the
get
federal
ready to
government
rumble!
is unable or unwilling to protect the lives and property of those human beings.
Liar, corrupt thief.
Global, universal, and coming from the windy city of Chicago, Illinois. Now it's time to let the truth be told with David Lowery.
Yo, come on in. Y'all voted for him. And we got complications. And welcome, folks, to the talk show. Let the truth be told. I'm your host, Pastor David, and folks, we got a great conversation. Thank you. Folks, we got to have this conversation today. But first, let me give all praises to God and my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, for making it happen for me this morning and making it happen for everybody out there listening to the show. Folks, the reason why I started my show off with Superfly, and it's called Little Child Running Wild, because I'm going to take you back down memory lane for those, to the brothers who gonna know what I'm talking about. A lot of y'all gonna know. See, when the movie Superfly came out, it was so many black men and women and the brothers who had came from down south, even the ones who were here in Chicago, they began to see the black community flourish. Black men had jobs, they was taking care of their families, our schools were good, our communities were strong. The black family structure was at about 89 to 90%. Black people was in control of their own communities and their own destinies. Excuse me. We was teaching our kids we could compete with anybody because we were learning to be intelligent young black men and women. For we knew that it was our responsibility because most of our parents didn't get a good education. And so the theme for black people was to educate your children so that they could take the black race and the black community to the next level. And when the government saw, just like they saw in Tulsa, Oklahoma in 1926, when the Black Wall Street was implemented and black people in that area was the richest in all the neighborhoods throughout the United States. Rosewood, Florida, the same thing. But when black people were successful because they separated and they've gotten their foot in the door by becoming a republic by the help of the abolitionists. It was Frederick Douglass who started the Republican Party. But this ain't about the Republican Party. This is about karma. This is about the things that you do that will always come back to you. And I'm saying back in the 60s, as Black people began to rise in our communities and the intelligence in the Black community soared not only in Chicago, but all the major cities down south, there was a cry and a scheme. How can we stop Black people from flourishing? Just like Margaret Sanger created the Planned Parenthood to abort our children, 58 million abortions since Roe versus Wade, they came up with an idea to stop the Black community. And the white society and the white government said, guess what? We've tried everything that we could, from the alcohol to smallpox to the Tuskegee Airmen, the university. We've tried so many things to destroy the Black community, but it hasn't worked. And so that was when the government came up with the great idea, is that guess what? We got to introduce drugs into the Black community on such a level that it would impact their families forever. Thus, in the 60s, late 60s, cocaine, heroin, all sorts of pills popped up on the scene, especially in the major cities. The heroin caught up a lot of our young brothers and sisters. They was going to sleep standing up. The heroin was causing overdoses. And it's the continuing use, generations after generations. The drugs that were implemented, the cocaine, the alcohol, the heroin, speed, Black beauties, all sorts of drugs popped up in the Black community. And it was only for a few. And growing up during that time, we didn't see a lot of junkies on the corner. We didn't see it because a lot of us had missions to be successful, to be somebody and come back to the Black community and uplift it and take it to the next level. But then the cocaine hit. The cocaine came in such a storm because it was considered the white man's drug because Black people couldn't afford it. And so you would see the elite Blacks, the ones in Hollywood and those who, the professional football players and athletes and NBA, all these people who could afford cocaine were snorting and smoking cocaine. And so some genius had a great idea on how to create cocaine. But see, cocaine is already very addictive, just like heroin. But some genius created cocaine that said, you know what? We can make it much more addictive because a lot of people wasn't getting into the cocaine where they were snorting and becoming junkies. So the mission of the government is we have to slow down the Black community. We cannot let them continue to make great leaders after Dr. King and Malcolm X. We must do something to stop it. And so in the late 80s, in the early 90s, all of a sudden, thus popped up crack cocaine. That was some genius who sit around and figured that they could get a better high by stripping the cocaine from the impurities that came with it and smoking it in a pipe. Slowly, the Black community started to seeing our great comedians and actors and all sorts of athletes snorting and smoking cocaine. It wasn't until Richard Pryor, one of the greatest comedians of all time, got so high on crack cocaine, he set himself on fire and broke out the house and ran down the road and almost died because he almost burnt to death. And a lot of Black people didn't know what cocaine was, the crack cocaine, but then they made it affordable. And all of a sudden, crack cocaine hit the Black community. It came through like a wave of death. It had no faces, didn't care what color, but if you took a hit off that crack pipe, you was caught forever. cocaine, crack cocaine was so prevalent, and it was the government who put crack cocaine in the black cities. And once the cocaine took a hold, our leaders, Marion Barry, the mayor of Baltimore, got caught smoking crack. He was turning flips in a hotel getting high. Our athletes smoking crack cocaine. They made it so accessible that anybody could afford it. But one hit of the pure crack cocaine and you was hooked. And so it was the black men who was so ignorant to the fact that they wanted money so bad that they started cooking up the cocaine and selling crack. It hit the black community like a sledgehammer. I saw my friends who I never known to be on drugs, took one hit and was hooked. It was selling like hotcakes on every corner in Chicago, every major city. They even made a movie about it in Baltimore called The Wire, which I went out to see for myself. And I saw junkies. I saw our people being destroyed. I saw people living in cars right here in Chicago. My heart was broken because no longer did we have young black men and women who were going and growing up to take the black community to the next level. But we had a bunch of junkies running in the black community. Crime was rampant. They were stealing people, kids. That's when it all started. You never heard of black people stealing folks' kids. But the drug was so powerful. The need for the drug was so powerful. You had all sorts of people doing crazy things just to get it. We had brothers in the black community who used it against women, and once they got on it, they had them selling out on the street corners, having sex with animals, doing whatever they wanted to do just for a hit of crack cocaine. And the black community started deteriorating. Our schools was inundated. Our young people smoking crack. They wasn't going to get no education. All they wanted to do was get high. And when the government and powers that be saw that their plan had worked, just like they did the Indians, and they gave them smallpox, just like they did every other race that came here, they destroyed them and controlled them. But to add insult to injury, the black community was still hanging on to the family structure. And then the second wave came of addiction. Now you got crack running all over, people killing each other about the crack, junkies robbing, our women on the street corners hoeing. They couldn't keep jobs. Black men were steady feeding it to the black community, the stupid ones. They introduced it to the street organizations, the GDs and BDs and vice lords. Y'all can take this crack and sell it. And those who did not have the honor or the structure to the organizations that they upheld to fell for the trick. They thought that I could get me a key and get the crack and sell it and get rich. That was the persona. That was the narrative that they put in the black community. And our young brothers bought into it, and they started selling crack on every corner in every major city, in every country town in the United States. And the black community began to dwindle. The family structure began to die. And after all the crime and mayhem that the drugs and the guns created, then up jumped the federal government at the advice of black pastors who would not stand up, who would not go out and teach our children. The black pastors who didn't stand up and say, guess what? We can stop the crack cocaine. We got to sound the alarm so that the black community can come together. But the pastors sit back in the four walls of the church. They didn't say nothing because they was afraid of all the violence, the killing behind the drugs. instead of saying something and coming together to deal with the issues, black pastors got quiet. Cocaine entered the churches. We had pastors smoking crack, jumping up and down, who had conformed to the world. And so after things got so bad, junkies falling out all on the west side, on the south side, brothers in the street organizations killing each other for territory, shooting and killing people on the church steps here in Chicago. The black community was a war zone. And the white community didn't say a word. Even though the white community was suffering with the same problem, nobody said nothing. And the drug that was meant to destroy the black community started to seep into the white community. The children that was politicians was getting hooked on crack cocaine. See, God got a way of making things happen to those who do things to destroy other people. It was just like Haman when Mordecai and Haman, when Haman built a gallows to hang Mordecai, and Mordecai ended up being hung by the same gallows that he had planned. Haman got hung by the gallows that he had planned to hang Mordecai with. Yeah, it's in the Bible. So in other words, when you dig one ditch, you better dig two. One for me and one for you. And so crack cocaine spread it into the white community. White kids was coming from the white communities and coming to the black communities just to buy some rocks. But in the white community, they kept a lid on it. They didn't tell you little Johnny was smoking crack all night. They didn't tell you that their daughters were selling whatever their bodies to get high on cocaine. They weren't talking about the prescription drugs in the white community because they kept it under wraps. And yet the white community, the children were suffering because they were getting high just as bad as the black ones. And so the government said, it is time to reap the harvest. So in the 90s, crime was so bad in the black communities, the cocaine, the need for it, the cocaine, the heroin, and all the other drugs was so rampant, kids wasn't going to school, people weren't going to work because they were sitting in the house smoking crack all day. The black community was dying. The federal government said, guess what? We finna have a war on drugs. And the war on drugs was to finish destroying the black community. So therefore, when the government, the government is smart. They're gonna make sure that they said, well, it wasn't a government that just came into the black community and brought the war on drugs to stop it. But see, the government was smart. They let the crime go up and things got so bad out of hand, the neighborhoods got so bad that the people was calling for help, and the black legislators with the black pastors bought into what the government wanted them to do, and they said, we need to come up with special bills. We need a special law right now that can stop this. We need laws that's gonna clean the black community up. Thus, the federal government and law enforcement created the crime bill, and they created the RICO laws. See, the crime bill was created because now that the black community was inundated with crime and infested with drugs, the powers that be began to wonder, how can we finish? Because see, black people, we have been under attack ever since we got off the slave ships in this country. You can see, as of today, things have gotten worse for us. And so when they wanted to really finish black people off, they said, now black people are calling us. They saying, we need your help because our communities was dying. And the crime was rampant. The junkies was falling all over the place. And the good, fine, upstanding black citizens and the good, fine, upstanding pastors begged the federal government to do something. And that's what the federal government wanted to do. Thus, they created laws. The senators, the Congress people, they got together. They had already created laws. As a matter of fact, there was a young senator named Joe Biden who was a grand cyclops of the Ku Klux Klan. See, people, I'm telling y'all this, so y'all finna get a lesson today. Because what you see in the office, you talking about Joe heads the Ku Klux Klan and is a grand cyclops wizard. Has been since he was a senator. So Joe Biden, who said this as he was creating the crime bill, and Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton and all the rest of them who passed laws and opened the prisons up so that they could be private. There was money to be made in a penal system, and there was plenty to use to put in it. And black men who were out here using crack cocaine, selling crack cocaine, to add more injury to the insult, they took the economics out the black community. They pulled out all the jobs. Brothers was going to work. They pulled out all the jobs, all the economics out the black community as they continue to die. So now all of a sudden ain't no jobs in the black community. People ain't working. So now you put the crack in, and thus the black community continues to die. So this young senator, who is now y'all president, black people, said that he didn't want it. He said when they created the bill, Joe Biden sensationalized the bill so much. He said out in the open, he said in the Congress, in front of the Senate, he said to about black people, he said, I don't want them niggers going to school with my children. They're animal. They're savages. I can't have my kids growing up like that. And so Joe and his colleagues, Senator Byrd and all the rest of the senators who was part of the Ku Klux Klan, created the crime bill that locked up the entire black male population, our sisters. The war against drugs was a war to finish the black community. And the black community started to dwindle. The prisons started to get full. Black men was going to jail for the smallest things. And in the meantime, the black community just continued to die. You add another, see, I'm trying to give you the history. And so now you add all these, and we got all these black men locked up, prisons are private. At the time when I did a study, it cost at least $70,000 to $80,000 per prisoner in the jail system. 1 year. So if you can make $100,000 to $150,000 off one inmate, and the prison system is private, and you done invested money into that, where are you gonna find that $100,000? Where are you gonna find people to lock up so that you can get them into private jails to make money off the degradation of black people? So black people, I wanna play you a little clip. To all of y'all out there, y'all sitting around in your stupidity, especially black people. I'm giving you this show, and I'm giving you an education on how we got here and the people that helped us get here. So Joe Biden had no other choice after he said he didn't want no niggas around his kids and that we were savages. So this is what Joe did. Joe implemented the new crime bill. Y'all check it out, what Joe said.
A piece of crack cocaine, no bigger than this quarter that I'm holding in my hand, $1/4 of $1. We passed a law through the leadership of Senator Thurmond and myself and others, a law that says if you're caught with that, you go to jail for 5 years. You get no probation. You get nothing other than 5 years in jail. Judge doesn't have a choice. Now, the fact of the matter is, we've gone from there all the way up to saying, under the leadership of Senator Thurmond, and I'd like to suggest that I take some small credit for it myself as well, and others, the presiding officer, that there is now a death penalty. And we passed it a couple years ago. If you are a major drug dealer involved in the trafficking of drugs and murder results in your activities, you go to death. And
so, folks, see, that was Joe Biden talking about Senator Strom Thurmond, who also was a grand wizard of the Ku Klux Klan. And so it was all the senators, Joe Biden, all the other Klan leaders who was undercover into the Congress, like they still are today. That was y'all president, Joe Dementia Biden, setting the stage, created a law that would destroy the black community. But see, karma is an MFer. Because see, even though he created these laws to continue to destroy the black community, it was karma that we see now that his son, Hunter Biden, is a crackhead and a homosexual and probably a pedophile. And that brings us up to today. For the last couple of weeks, we saw an illegal justice system that convicted Donald Trump on bogus charges that should have never been put in. But they did. You see, God got a way. God got a way of taking what the enemy has done to make it bad and turn it around for good. See, if God wasn't using Donald Trump as an instrument of war, we would have never been able to see. Black people done seen it, because from the crime bill, we lost everything. We lost economics in our community. We lost generations to jail. We lost kids to abortion. Everything bad that could happen to a community started happening in the black community. That's when you started to see the Chinese move into the black community and opening up stores and gas stations, because black legislators were not grooming anybody. All they wanted to do was make sure the people stayed high so that they could keep stealing money. And Chicago and other major cities continue to die. But it was Joe Biden who passed the crime bill. And today, his son, the same Joe that said he didn't want his son to be around niggas because we was animals and savages, got a crackhead in the White House right now. Let's talk about Hunter. Hunter is a crackhead, a homosexual, a pedophile, a liar, a thief. Everything he has done is illegal. And yet for the last 2 or 3 weeks, we had to hear it. We had to hear Donald Trump this, Donald Trump that, Donald Trump this, the lies that were stole and told to the American people and patriots across this country. Our eyes are open to a system that was created to destroy the minorities, but now we can see that it came against a billionaire. And it came against Donald Trump because he see what's happening to America. I'm saying this because, see, we got Hunter Biden trial going on right now. Hunter's trial going on right now. And you don't hear the fanfare. You ain't hearing it on CNN. You're not hearing it on MSNBC. You're not hearing it on NBC. You're not hearing it in the media because they're part of the problem. But when it was in the black community, when our children was on the crack so bad, and our grandmothers was crying and praying in the middle of the night, the crack had our grip on our community and it was dying. But you don't hear about the crack that's at the White House, holes at the White House, drugs being used, the homosexuality at the White House. They don't want to tell you about how Joe's stealing money and documents and worshiping Satan. His son bringing holes in the back door. They finding dope everywhere. This ain't the first time they found dope in the White House. The boy's a crackhead. Let's talk about Joe for a minute. See, Joe and Miss Jill, if you want to know, Miss Jill probably killed Joe's first wife anyway, because Joe was sleeping with her when she wasn't nothing but a little girl. Okay? Let's talk about Joe and his dysfunctional family. Joe got a crackhead son named Hunter Biden, who not only probably slept with his mother, he done slept with his brother's wife, and he's still married. He got holes on the side. That's dysfunctional. Joe Biden sitting around here sniffing on babies. It just came out, his own daughter. How you a grown man having a shower with your daughter and she's 12 and 13 years old? That's inappropriate. That's what Joe Biden did, and it's out there. But who's saying something about it? Let's look at the dysfunction. It's coming out. Joe's daughter, her diary got bought, and they showing what Joe was taking showers with the child. And she said he had sex with her. So how can this be? How can this be an honorable family with all that we see? This Biden administration caused wars. They've been stealing money. They've been lying. They've been washing money through. Barack Obama been part of it. Hillary Clinton, all of them have been stealing money and trying to destroy the American people. They've gotten themselves so inundated with everything that America can't even grow anymore. Our country is not growing. We've had to come through COVID. We'd had to fight to keep our children sane while Joe Biden and his administration instituted transgender world. He want to make everybody a homosexual and a pedophile. This administration continue to worship homosexuality, worship Satanism. I keep telling people this is a war between good and evil. I was on the Andy Caldwell show last night, the J.T. Thomas show in Alabama this morning, and I'm letting the American people and patriots across this country. This is the good and evil war that the Bible talked about. We're in the middle of it, and America has become the new Sodom and Gomorrah. Satan is using the gay population to do his deeds. The Black Lives Matter, this whole transgender, the homosexual thing. Black people, is it too late to wake up? But God would not be mocked. So all of a sudden now, we're looking at a crackhead whole son in the White House. And Joe Biden is doing everything to cover his son up. It's a lot of stuff going on in this White House that the American people are not seeing. But one thing for sure that we are seeing, we can see how the Democratic Party has used this lawfare. They've used all sorts of tactics against the American people. It was the Democratic Party who in cahoots with the Ukraine and the Bidens and the Obamas and the Pelosi's to the American people and patriots across this country. We got the enemy in the White House. They're attacking us, our way of life. They're attacking our children. All on the guise of saying, we're trying to help save America. We're trying to bring democracy to the Ukraine. Well, the democracy in the Ukraine, they're getting their ass kicked, and they don't want to tell you. They losing the war. But the taxpayers have footed billions and trillions of dollars that are being watched through the Biden administration. And the money stays right here in this country into the politician's pocket. They're not trying to tell you how bad our economy is. It's them tanked out. They're lying and cheating and printing money. Our economy is so bad, and people, we feel it in our pockets. But yet and still, for 2 weeks, we heard about Donald Trump because he grabbed somebody's ass and paid off somebody hush, which it was legal, but they made it a crime, and the Department of Justice ensured that the third in charge there at the Justice Department took a downgrade and became a second-hand prosecutor for Alvin Bragg in New York in the case against Donald Trump. I'm saying it because, see, black people, we don't do no research and we don't understand. We're not looking at the true facts of what's happening to us and to this country. See, Donald Trump was the wake-up call. Now the American people can see that Joe and them and Obama and them, it was never about nothing good for this country. Their idea was to take it over, turn it over to Satan, and rule and dictate to the American people what they wanted to. They want to dictate to us when we can sleep, when we can eat. And the damn shame about it is we paying their salaries. We are paying them to destroy us. But let's get back to Joe. So black people, you've been fooled. Malcolm said you got bamboozled. Could you imagine? Could you only imagine? Could you imagine what Joe Biden them is saying about black people? Them some dumb niggers. Now we got them killing each other. We don't have to do it no more. All we got to do is keep implementing things and and look at black people. Look at our community. Black men and women ain't getting married. Our kids as dumb as the boxes of rocks. They can't even hold a sentence. They don't even know what cursive writing is. Write something in cursive and see if they can read it. It worked. And law enforcement have won the war, not against drugs, but to help destroy the black community. And thus now the prisons are still full. When Joe created the crime bill stayed in effect until President Trump got in. As a matter of fact, Joe called himself ending the crime bill only because black people don't woke up and found out what he did and what he's doing. That's why you see the illegal aliens in the black community. Because the Barack Obamas and the Hillary Clintons and Bill Clinton and the George Bushes, they knew that at some point black people were going to wake up and they were going to say, we got to leave the Democratic Party. That is this day. Not tomorrow. That is this day that black people open their eyes. How could it? You say Donald Trump is a racist, but you got the Ku Klux Klan Grand Wizard, Cyclops Wizard in the White House. And he proving it to you every day. They opened the borders and they allowed all these illegals to come here. Not because they was looking for work, because black people started waking up. But it was too late. Look how they destroyed us. Look at our communities. It was perfect timing because now most of all the black men in the community is either locked up or dead. We got a bunch of young people that's scared of their shadows. They're only gatekeepers. And our young people coming up today, they have no sense of self. They don't even think out the box. They're so used to being told what to do by the computers, they cannot read, they cannot write. But yet they can tell you about homosexuality. They can tell you about transgenderism. They can tell you about all the things that are ungodly. And not one good thing is coming out the black community. But God would not be mocked. Joe Biden, your crackhead son, should go to jail. See, he's on center stage right now. You don't hear it like you was hearing Donald Trump. Now we got a real criminal that's on trial. But the Department of Justice, as well as some of the others who Joe Biden was paying money, that's why they stealing money. That's why you don't hear much about the Israel. You hear about the Hamas stuff now. That war that should have never been. Because it was never about being attacked. It was about taking the land from the Palestinians. The American people, we have to be awake and we have to understand that what we have as leadership is an enemy to us. It's showing us every day. Just like here in Chicago, Brandon Johnson. Brandon Johnson ain't fixed Chicago. He ain't said, I'm going to take some money and I'm going to put it over there to stop the crime in the black community. He has not allocated one penny for the drug problem and the drug uses still in the black community. He ain't allocated one penny for our homeless people, but just asked for another $70 million and told the federal government, we can take on another 400,000 to 700,000 illegal aliens in Chicago, and we ain't got to get the citizens nothing. That's all part of the Democratic Party. So basically, black people, the Democratic Party has told you to sit down and shut your ass up and wait till we decide we want to give you something. It's been 60 years. And black people have nothing. No banks, no economics, no factories, nothing. And the businesses that black people had, they're dead. The black community has become desolate. There's no family structure anymore. It's down to 9%. And to make sure that the black community doesn't come back, there's dissension between black men and black women. It's created by the enemy. It's the falsehood of thoughts. I'm so tired of black men and women not understanding that the enemy is not ourselves, but it's the narrative that have been put in our minds to make us think that way. Everybody else getting married, white women getting married, Hispanic women getting married, Italian women getting married. The black women ain't getting married. Half of them can't keep a man because they so independent, we don't want no man. We got everything. But in the middle of the night, if you hear a noise, you'd almost jump out your shoes because you ain't got no man. Black men ain't doing their job. We have to be responsible. We have to take care of our children. We have to be the protectors not only of our families, but the neighborhood. A lot of black men are uneducated. They don't know how to be men. They're running around here. They're boys in men's clothes. Thus, it's bad and slim picking for our women. So it is bad for single people, especially if you're black. Our children have lost their mind. And yet again, we still looking at situations, and guess who's in office? Y'all want to talk about Donald Trump. I'm telling you, go find out who Joe Biden is. Go the clip that I played. Y'all need to find out who he really is. Because you voted for your own demise. You put Joe in office, man, and Joe ain't did nothing for us. I found it very, very offensive that now here we come, Hunter Biden coming into court looking like he's somebody. The Biden name is drug in the mud. The Biden name the Biden name should be put inside a prison. To the Republicans out there, you need to be doing everything that you can. Now that you see that they're using lawfare, the warfare, now that you see what you saw was what they've been doing for black men for ages, padding charges, lying, putting evidence down, hiding evidence. And so with Joe Biden, y'all just heard him say, we created the crime bill. You get caught with crack, you got 5 years. And it got worse until the black community got to this stage. And now here we are, the remnants of what's left of the black community. Pastors been bought and paid for. They're not saying nothing because they scared they're going to lose their little public safety money. Our children are not being taught nothing because the teachers that are teaching you a curriculum of not math and science and logical thinking, but how to deceive your parents, how to free the boy that's trapped inside of a girl and a girl that's got a boy trapped inside of them. That's what our children are learning. And it's all coming from the Democratic Party. What is it that we see? God created marriage between a man and a woman, and yet you see people like J.B. Pritzker with not a woman, but a man. You see his own mama with a partner. So we can see where the homosexuality come in. Look at Barack Obama, the king queer, a homosexual. What did he do for black people? He did nothing, but made it worse for us. He opened the door for all of this to happen to this country. And black people, y'all sitting around worshiping Obama like he's a god. He's a god of darkness. He's one of the antichrists that's waiting to overthrow God and make slaves of his people. So I'm telling the people across this country, to the American citizens and the patriots across this country, now we see with our own eyes. It is nothing hidden anymore. We know that the Democrats are going to cheat. We know that they lied in 2020. We know that they were the ones who passed the laws and made the prisons open. We know that it was Joe who said, if you ain't black, you ain't black if you don't vote for Joe. It was Kamala Harris who held back the evidence on 2 black men on death row. She knew they was innocent and held the evidence till they was executed and brought it out and said, oh my God, look what I found. That's y'all vice president with knee pads on, sucking her way to the top. And yet we got black people running around here talking about we need 4 more years of Joe. I guarantee you, if you think it can get any worse, give up 4 more years to Joe and see how worse it's going to get. So black people, what you going to do? What are you going to do? Where is our future? What does the black community hold? Oh yeah, I forgot. I forgot about those elite Greek niggers. It's a damn shame. Our own kids have turned against us. They've turned against the black community who helped them achieve their goals. And their only goal is to be able to make sure they kiss master's ass good enough to keep their jobs. And I can tell you this, elite Negro, you are next. Don't you think that if they came against us and they used you still black, they use you to steal from the black community. They use those house Negroes because, see, they got into legislative positions. And they're doling the money out to their own frat brothers and sisters. And they're opening businesses up everywhere else. And that money should be used to go into the black community. But they starting their own multicultural. So black people, we better understand one thing. We're almost extinct. A sharecropper kids who didn't go to college, who made it. We're almost extinct. They're creating a new elite black race known as house niggers. That's what it is. Pastor got to call it the way it is. I'm not going to sugarcoat nothing, no way. It's got to be told the way it is. Let the truth be told. Look at the black community. You see no black ownership nowhere because black people ain't got no money. If there's no economics in the community, what can you do? Now all of a sudden the illegals are here. It sure ain't gonna be no jobs. The illegals are now taking jobs for $6 and $7 an hour. So they ain't worried about no $15 because that minimum wage law ain't even kicked in. Ain't nobody giving nobody $15 an hour. That's the lie. What happened to it? We've been tricked. We've been made a fool out of. And now we're self-destroying ourselves. We're inflicting self-wounds on ourselves because we keep electing the wrong people. To the black community, our solution is this. What's left of the remnants of black men and women for the greater good, and I'm saying for the greater good of the black community, because you are not going to win. You can't make no deal with the devil and expect for him to fulfill it. He's going to lie and cheat you every time and then steal your soul. What's left of the black community, to those who are out here, our street brothers, the ones who ain't in the jail, the GDs, the BDs, the Vice Lords, the Stones, everybody that I know of, my family. It's us, the last line of defense. I was on the Andy Caldwell show last night, and I talked about the brothers of the struggle. I talked about how black men are fighting to save the communities. I talked about it's going to be us who's going to have to stand up and fight and keep these illegals from overrunning our community. Black people, don't fool yourself. Don't buy into the street gangs. The police is a gang. The lawyers is a gang. The judges is a gang. But they use those words to separate us from each other and to separate us from our children. That's what happened in the 60s. That's why we see Joe Biden in office today. And we see so many black men and women in jail, steal from Joe Biden's crime bill. And black people voted for him and put him in office. And now we see the finishing touches. The children are becoming homosexuals. They can't count, they can't read. Ain't no economics in our community. You know why? Because they made it so. We lost it. We're losing everything that we have. Our communities is dying. Black people don't own nothing, and they're making sure it stay that way. So black people, I think it's time for a change. I really do. Malcolm said it. Malcolm said we have to stop voting one way. Even if we don't want to, vote a different way. Don't vote the same way every time, because once we do that, we get complacent. And black people have been complacent for 60 years, voting for the Democratic Party. Black people have nothing. The Republicans have used and abused us. And sit back and watch this. To the Republicans, you have an opportunity to regain some credibility in the black community. But see, what's wrong with the Republican Party? We got a lot of rhinos in office. Sean Morrissey. They getting a few of them out. Steve Bowden, glad you gone, you coward. You still got a bunch of rhinos in the legislation who continue to allow the Democrats to do what they're doing in Illinois. To the people of Illinois, to all the people of Illinois, we need to stand up right now and become one, because the polls in Chicago and the polls in New York, the polls in California, the polls in New Jersey, wherever there's a blue city or a blue state, you can believe that they're going to be cheating. What Donald Trump said was true. I've seen the cheating when we went out for the primaries ourselves with our own eyes. And if black people don't wake up and start taking care of ourselves and fighting to keep our communities, we're going to completely be dead. And in saying that, folks, I got to get on up out of here. I'm glad y'all listened to the show. And like I said, let us pay attention because it's just simple. We got to make a change. We got to be able to understand that the Democratic Party is going to do nothing for black people. My last words. Black people, to my sisters and brothers from the bottom of my heart, if we are going to survive, and it don't look like we will, but God is in control, all we have to do is put him first, acknowledge, and ask God to forgive you for your sins. Read the Bible to show yourself approved. Faith without work is dead. Let us rise up, become one. One America, one people, one God. Let us make America great again. God bless you, and I'll see y'all tomorrow. Share it around. Wednesday night, TPCNTV.com. I'm your host, Pastor David, and I'll see y'all tomorrow night. In the meantime, in between time, give me your love. Give up some love. Love your community. Love your people. And love your God. Peace.
I want you so bad, can't even get mad at you. What a thing, you really sweet, and I feel so good, it's true. You're such a good, make my lungs sound, breathing in the air. Through loving you, I really know, child, just how much I care. Give me your love.
Let us put something on your mind.
Give me your love. 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 Preparing for tomorrow, you do what you have to do. I'll share the way, whatever fate plans to bring to you. Don't worry about no attitude, you just be yourself. Could live with you in solitude and need no one else.